Welcome to part 2. First thing that we need to do is put our heading, name, number, date, first and last in cursive. Remember to put the date you are working on these notes, not necessarily the date I am writing. Our subject is math. Alright. Well, we have protractors drawn here to help us out, but I would like us to practice with the one that you have as well. So we're going to find the degree measure, and then we're going to classify it as acute, right, obtuse, or straight. Acute is less than 90 degrees. Right is exactly 90 degrees. Obtuse is greater than 90 but less than 180 degrees. And a straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. This one, you can see the numbers pretty well. So we're starting at 0. And if you see where it terminates, it looks like it's intersecting halfway between these two pieces. The 0 is the bottom set of numbers, so we look at the bottom set. So it looks like it's 75 degrees. So if you look here, even with this, you put your dot right on the vertex, line up that ray with 0 right along that line, and it points to the same place on ours. This is why I made you a smaller one, because most angles that you have to measure are really small. If you buy the ones at the store, they tend to be pretty large and make it harder to use. This is less than 90 degrees, so it is an acute angle. Okay, this one, here's where we start with the 0. It is the top set of numbers, so let's see where it crosses or terminates. It terminates directly on 140 degrees. This is much larger than the 90 degrees, so it is an obtuse angle. Okay, and if you practice putting that vertex, the dot right on the vertex, lining up at the 0, and you should see that it's pointing to the 40 and 140 degrees. We know to use the 140 for two reasons, because the 0 that I'm pointing at over here is on the top set or outer set of numbers, and also it's obtuse, so that one makes more sense. It's reasonable to use 140. It's not reasonable to use 40 because it's obtuse, not acute. Okay, and then this next one right here, we have that vertex right at the center point, and then we're lined up on this side, crosses here, but it doesn't matter which side we're lined up on because both of these are 90 degrees. This is our very important and special right angle. Very, very important to know. Right angles are critical in things like building. Anything with construction, you definitely want to have things that are right angles, otherwise your walls won't fit together well, your roof won't fit on. Right angles are very important. And using your protractor, practice putting that center point on the vertex, line up on the 0, and it should be pointing to your 90 degrees straight above. Okay, on this one, it looks like I have use 120 degrees, take away 75 degrees, or I could have looked at it as 105 degrees, take away 60 degrees. If I use a subtraction, I need to use the same set of numbers. So I could do 120 take away 75, or I could do 105, take away 60. Or I could count. 10, 20, 30, 40, and halfway would be 45 degrees. 120 take away 75 is actually 45, because it takes 25 to get to 100, plus 20 more is 45. And then this would also be 45. 5 take away 0 is 5, 10 take away 6 is 4. If it's a 45-degree angle, that means it is an acute angle. Now you could take your protractor and line it, put that midpoint, that center dot, right on the vertex, line it up with a 0, and you should see that it's pointing at the 45 degrees right there. So the nice thing with the one that in your hand is you can turn it to the 0 and you don't have to do any subtraction. You can see exactly where it terminates or intersects your protractor. Okay, so here we can look at it as 170 degrees, take away 5 degrees, which that's just 165 degrees. Or I could look at the bottom set of numbers. This is 175 degrees, take away 10 degrees, which is 165 degrees. Or I could count. So starting from here, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150, 160, and halfway is 165 degrees. Let's practice with our protractor. And put that center point on the vertex. We need to line up one of the rays with 0. And then the other one is pointing at that 165 degrees. This is definitely greater than 90 degrees, so it is an obtuse angle. Our final one here. This one is at 120 degrees. Using the bottom set of numbers, this one is pointing at 25 degrees. Or using the top set of numbers, this is pointing at 155 degrees. And this one's pointing at 60 degrees. If we do the subtraction, this is more than 100. Take away the 20, that leaves 100. Take away 5 more is 95. 5 take away 0 is 5. 15 take away 6 is 9. So 95 degrees, or we can count. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Halfway in between is 95 degrees. Also, let's practice with your protractor. Put the midpoint on that center dot, line it up with the 0, and you should see that it's pointing at that halfway mark at 95 degrees. Okay, this is barely, but it is greater than 90 degrees, so it is an obtuse angle. This is one you have to be careful of because it looks pretty close to a right angle, but is just a little bit bigger. All right, let's go ahead and practice some more with your protractors. Be careful to keep this in the pocket of your folder so you do not lose it. Okay, thank you for joining me.